In this video, a personal story and personal process that I am deeply in right now. I don't know that I've ever just verbalized the process as I'm with it, especially not on a YouTube live. I have, of course, with coaches or mentors or friends or that sort of thing. But something really extraordinary is happening today, and I wanted to share it with you. So, as you may know, I am a medium, which means I can communicate with the consciousness of beings that are outside of a human body. This can be loved ones that have passed, baby beings, angels, aliens, demons, plants, water, all sorts of stuff, right? So, in my vocation, in my healing practice, I have learned to do all sorts of entity removals and extractions and healing practices in so many different ways. Um, what I want to share with you is something that I actually don't think I verbalized or shared here because I really have been comprehending a new understanding to what we would call entities are. And you've seen, if you've gone in through any of the archives on my playlist with light language boosts or anything like that, you'll see that there are several videos that show entity clearings and that sort of thing. So, in my experience, and I have released tons of entities from my space, especially when I started sobering up and I stopped drinking and I stopped putting myself in environments that were, as I would call, like a trans medium playground. I've done all types of entity removals on friends, family members. Like it's way more common than people want to admit. Well, this is one of the things that I started learning a couple years ago as I started seeing some really, really, I would say, big entities with people that were leading groups and specifically leading healing groups. The stereotype or the archetype of the spiritual narcissist, that whole shebang. And as I got closer and closer to these things or these circumstances, and mind you, these entities, as I'm going to call them, they have the capacity to influence your thoughts, influence your behavior, influence your choices and your actions. And oftentimes you are aware that you're doing it, but it's subconscious. So you're aware that you're doing something, or you're aware that you're doing something that doesn't quite align with like who you are and how you show up in the world, but there's something that's taking place, there's something that's happening that is almost like uncontrollable, sort of thing. Or you're just like not really desiring to stop it. So, one of the things that I've really deeply noticed with this is that the entity itself, the consciousness itself, and that's where I'm going to start like shifting even what I was trained and taught to believe versus what I'm seeing now, which are similar but different. And so, what I've learned is that the entity itself can only plug into a host by a matching frequency. So think like a trauma bond. So if there is a low level frequency that is embedded into the consciousness of the human, meaning the human being is carrying around this particular frequency. And this particular frequency could be blame, shame, guilt. The one that I'm noticing right now for myself is that belief, that childhood belief that nobody cares. I don't know if you've ever had that moment when you were growing up. I had a couple of really, really profound and big moments where I just consistently thought that nobody cared about me, that nobody was really, paying attention to my well-being. And now, was that totally true? No, it wasn't totally true, but did it feel 100% true and accurate to my little girl self? Yes, completely it did. And so, as I was doing my morning routine and going about my own meditation this morning, I had a really, really beautiful just vision, right? Letting my mind water, kind of daydream. I have a family event that I'm going to this weekend, and I was envisioning saying to one of my younger family members, she has an event that's happening. And so I was envisioning going to her and saying, "We love you so much. We're so proud of you," and just kind of speaking for my family and letting her know how loved and supported she is, and that, you know, if there's anything that she wants to be in the world, she can be it. And what I realized was this was my adult self seeing the image of the child in front of me and recognizing after about an hour that that message was from myself as an adult now to my inner child. Well, what has taken place since then has been a wild healing. And now, since I've been doing this for a long time, I'm aware of what's taking place within myself and my own inner world. I'm aware that there's a big energetic shift happening. I'm aware that I'm releasing a big, giant, deep story, a story that has been underlying by means of so many things that I've done or created, thinking that I have to do it by myself. You know, hyper independence is a form, it is a trauma response. So the hyper independence that I've cultivated that has led me to like extraordinary feats, really creating and magnetizing to some really potent and powerful life experiences. It's like it comes with a double-edged sword. It's that hyper independence has been a really beautiful thing, and it's also gotten me into quite a bit of trouble that would reaffirm that pattern of the nobody cares, I have to do this by myself. And not only that, something that I've really noticed in the last couple of weeks, because I've been growing my business, I've been delegating tasks, I've been hiring teams, I've been doing all sorts of beautiful things, and that there's this, I have this trigger that I can recognize and identify as my own. But the trigger is when somebody wants to help me, there's a trigger that gets like agitated. There's a trigger that gets like I get irritated, or, you know, something happens in that way. And the reason that I'm speaking to all this is because I want to, one, I'm in it. And when I'm in it, I can explain more clearly how the mechanics of the inner world work, especially around healing. So the healing takes place, one, by acknowledging the wounded inner girl. That, you know, I was just having a very nice, beautiful daydream moment of wishing someone in my family beautiful blessings. And again, it's like it opened this can of worms in a really beautiful way. I'm in a safe place, I'm in a safe environment. I know how to hold space for myself to be able to unravel. That being said, the trigger that was getting trigged, as we will call it, when people would try to help and genuinely be there to help, and also because that's part of the agreement, right, with them, is that that trigger would get agitated, and the agitation is rewriting the story. So in my own ego structure, I have a story that is currently breaking down, thank the Lord. But there is a story that's breaking down around having to do everything by myself, breaking down the wound of the hyper independence, knowing that I'm deeply loved and deeply cared for, which is evident and has been evident across all times of my life, except for when I was kicking it out, when I was not letting it in. And part of the reason I wasn't letting it in was because I learned that I couldn't trust love. And if I learned that I couldn't trust love because of a dynamic that was going on, you know, with an early childhood experience, then that has been my knee-jerk protective mechanism. It's been a protection of my ego structure to say, well, if that feels like love, then kick it out and keep it away, because you know what's coming after that, sort of thing. It's that entrained belief around abuse cycles. So as I'm reconciling this connection with my own inner child, my own little girl, I could feel how, and this is really what I want to say, is that what I've learned is that behind every entity, behind every sabotaging, demeaning, manipulative, tricky entity is a deeply, deeply, deeply wounded inner child. This is also why inner childhood healing is so critically important. It's so important. And so to reconcile some of those things, like if I want, and this is also why I believe that growing a soul-centered business, growing a business that is from the center of your own heart's vision is one of the most spiritual things you can do. Because if I want to grow the business, and my influence and impact in the way that I know I am destined to, I've known this since I was a little girl. If I want to grow that, I am going to need to receive help. I'm going to need to receive support. I'm going to have to let it in. I'm going to have to shift my story around that and do that type of healing. And that's why I say that growing your soul centered business is one of the most spiritual practices you can do. Because when you grow and you expand and you're putting a message out there and you're doing something from the core, the center of your own heart, it leaves no stone unturned. You have to face your insecurities. You have to face your patterns. To hold space for others, you have to be compassionate, loving, caring, nurturing, like all of the things that are wrapped up into it. And to show up in the world in this way, where you are cultivating that kind of tenderness and that kind of love, the way and the reason. And this is what I say sets a good psychic apart from a bad psychic. In the same way there are good doctors and bad doctors, and good lawyers and bad lawyers. There are really, really, really good psychics, and there are really, 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 really bad ones. In my personal and humble opinion, the difference between the good ones and the bad ones is that the good ones are the ones that are doing their own work. If you go to a psychic, because there are people that have abilities, there are people that are wildly psychic that do no inner work. There are people that are wildly psychic that are so committed. Because here's the other thing that I've also learned about abilities is that abilities show up through pretty extreme experiences of trauma before the age of 5 or before the age of 10. It's rare that I meet a psychic, if I have ever met a psychic, that did not have significant trauma before the age of 10. So there's something about that cracks us open to the understanding that the world is different, right? That there's a sense within us that there's something that needs to be healed or reconciled. And so we learn to do the energy work. There are people that are born gifted. There are people that are born psychic that are carrying around an entire storage unit of crap because they're not willing to face their own stuff. In my personal and humble opinion of being an out of the closet, outspoken public psychic since I was 22 years old, I've met a lot of psychics, trained and untrained, powerful, ones that are stuck behind imposter syndrome. I've met so many beautiful humans that have extrasensory abilities, really incredible, powerful ones. And again, there's a power in cultivating a nurturing sense within yourself that you can carry yourself through your own healing, that you can re-mother and re-father, that you can reparent those portions and those parts of yourself that are needing that reconciliation, that are desiring that reconciliation, that in some way, shape, or form are absolutely crying for it. So as I'm sitting here trying to work, I'm recognizing, okay, there are some tectonic plates that are moving inside of me because of the clearing that happened this morning. And that is a beautiful thing, because I know that it will shift a lot of things in my work. It will shift a lot of things in the people that are magnetized to me. And it will shift a lot. It will just move through things, right? And that's the whole part and the whole point of healing while you're growing your business. It's why I don't believe that people have business problems. I believe they have personal problems that lead into their business. Well, my personal problem in this particular instance is that I have a problem receiving help. And I have created, my spirit, my soul has created some really screwed up ways to teach me to ask for help. Because the universe has no problem making you as uncomfortable as you need to be able to receive and integrate the lessons. And again, if I want to grow this movement in the way and the visions that I've seen since I was young, there's absolutely no way I can do it holding on to this problem and holding on to this ego structure protective mechanism. So my ego structure is doing what it can to protect me so as to not grow, so as to not be more visible, so as to not be more, XYZ, because it can be very affronting to really reach out for your dreams when you see that your dreams are quite large. And so there's a cycle that happens. There's the inner wounded child that is committed to this story that nobody loves me, nobody cares about me, nobody cares for me. I have to do everything on my own, and so I will figure it out. And Dr. Gabor Mate, he speaks so much about this, that trauma doesn't happen in the event. Trauma happens in the child dealing with emotions beyond their emotional capacity and understanding alone. And so there's a stunting that happens. There's a part of us that gets stuck in that point, in that frame of time. And so getting stuck in that point, in that frame of time, there's another part of us, of course, that moves on and continues to grow through life. This is also why we say that age is just a number. Maturity, we can meet a 12-year-old that is wildly mature, and even more so than a 40-year-old that hasn't really cultivated an integration awareness around emotional maturity or handling adult problems, that sort of thing. So we have this deeply wounded inner child. That deep wound within the inner child holds a particular frequency. That particular frequency is an access point, or as I have been seeing recently, that it's not actually an external entity, that it is actually a manifestation, a consciousness that is manifested in the sense of like it is a part of you, right? There's a part of me that doesn't like this. There's a part of me that this. So this part creates these circumstances and magnetizes these events around you so that you can see where you have room to grow. That's where the triggers are. That's what a trigger is. A trigger shows you where you have room to grow. Sometimes we just don't know how big or how deep they are. So when we're able to sit with the experience and feel our feelings, and some of them are really, really, really uncomfortable. Like, to be honest, I've been kind of like twisting and turning and just irritated and not feeling super great. I made myself a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for lunch. I never do that. Never. But I knew that it was what my inner child needed. And I could feel that there's a part of me deep within that needs to know that she is loved, appreciated, supported, and cared for by me. By me as the adult, meaning I'm not steamrolling my inner child needs. I'm not ignoring the needs of my inner child. I'm not pushing them away or pushing them aside, and bringing her in and saying, what is it that I can do to nurture you today? What is it that I can do to hold you today? What is it that I can do to show you that I love you and that I care for you, so that that wound can be reconciled, so that that wound can be nurtured and taken care of and appreciated and seen? Because when that takes place, that frequency that's being held by the root cause of that pain can be released. And it can be released at the absolute root cause, meaning there will be no more branches that carry that same frequency. There will be no more sub lessons, lesson 2, lesson 3, lesson 4 of the same thing. Because when you're able to access that root and you're able to sit with your inner child long enough until you feel that she fully becomes a part of you, that integration takes place, and that dissolving of that inner child comes fully into your body because her needs have been met. Beautiful. So thank you for joining me today. That's what I have to say about that. That I believe entities aren't so much entities, rather they are a subconscious manifestation of a deep wound that is masking and protecting a deeply wounded inner child. That's the summary. With that, my loves, thank you so much. If you're interested in growing your business, you have a message that you feel your soul is ready and willing to share, and you would like to come into our group, our community. It's called Rise. You can find it at monadsociety.com/rise with Sitara, Sitara. Yeah, you can find me there. Sorry, my phone was blowing up. And I have so much energy moving through my field right now. There is a big healing taking place. So anyway, if you would like to join us on that journey, go ahead and let me know. Click the link in the description below. Of course, play the algorithm game with me. Like, share, comment, subscribe, all the things. Thank you for being with me today. Thank you for witnessing me in my growth. Thank you for your love, your kindness, your support. I appreciate the role that you're playing in my life, even as a viewer or a replayer. And I do hope to get to know you very soon. All right, my sweet love. I hope you have a beautiful day. Mwah.